A Girl with Daisies, Renoir's lyrical return to light and tenderness. Painted in 1889 by Pierre-Auguste Renoir, A Young Girl with Daisies stands as a symbol of his artistic maturity and a poignant example of the high soft and light touch he reclaimed in his later years. Now housed in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, this gentle and lyrical work evokes in its viewers a quiet emotion and a sweet sense of nostalgia. In a letter to the art dealer Paul Durand-Ruel in 1888, Renoir wrote, "I have recovered my old style, soft and light, and I shall never abandon it again." This remark signals a shift away from the classical structuralism he had explored in the early 1880s. During that period, Renoir had been influenced by masters such as Ingres and Raphael, aiming for clear lines and firm forms. But around 1887, he began to return to a softer brushwork and a renewed sensitivity to light. A Young Girl with Daisies was created in the midst of this transition. It reflects a compelling fusion between the techniques of Impressionism and a classical sense of form. This synthesis shows that Renoir's return was not merely a nostalgic gesture, but rather the culmination of a long artistic evolution. The girl in the painting remains anonymous. She may have been someone from Renoir's circle or a local village child. Yet the absence of an identifiable model lends her a more universal quality. She becomes less a specific individual and more an archetype of girlhood itself. Holding daisies and wildflowers, she gazes softly toward the viewer, her expression a mix of childlike innocence and contemplative depth. What Renoir captures here is not just a portrait of a child, but a vision of the girl as a timeless embodiment of purity, beauty, and harmony with nature. This theme, the celebration of life in its most tender forms, was a constant in Renoir's work and lies at the heart of his artistic philosophy. One of Renoir's greatest strengths lies in his extraordinary sense of color, which is fully evident in this piece. The background is an ethereal blend of pale greens, yellow greens, and grays, softly merging without distinct outlines. Against this misty backdrop, the gentle pink of the girl's complexion and the daisy's humble whites and yellows emerge with luminous clarity. The light in the painting is diffused, flowing gently across the canvas. The gradation of light on the girl's cheeks functions almost like a veil of sunshine, a Renoir hallmark that wraps the scene in a warm, embracing glow. Her clothing and hair also reveal subtle shifts in tone, rendered through layers of translucent color rather than single hues. This layering technique, one of Renoir's trademarks, creates a sense not only of visible form but of atmosphere itself, as if the air around the figure is part of the painting. The composition is quietly balanced. The girl is positioned slightly off-center, and there is no harsh boundary between figure and background, everything melds naturally. This approach ensures that the viewer's attention is drawn entirely to the subject's expression and posture. The structural harmony of the painting, its interplay of horizontal and vertical elements, guides the viewer's gaze with a natural rhythm. The girl's eyes appear to look just beyond the frame, leaving space for interpretation. This deliberate silence, this refusal to narrate directly, is part of Renoir's poetic strategy. It is a refined approach found in the best of modern painting, to suggest rather than to declare. In this work, the daisy is not just a flower. It symbolizes innocence, purity, and simplicity. The act of holding a flower has long been a meaningful gesture in religious art. For instance, the Virgin Mary often holds a white lily, signifying purity. Renoir updates this tradition with a contemporary eye, choosing the daisy, a modest wildflower, to highlight the girl's radiant transparency. By depicting a field flower rather than an ornate bouquet, Renoir evokes the countryside and its serenity, an idyllic contrast to the clamor of urban life. The result is an image that comforts the viewer with a quiet, pastoral intimacy. At this time in his career, Renoir's works were particularly popular among upper-class and bourgeois patrons, who were looking for art that would suit the domestic interior. They favored scenes that celebrated everyday beauty and family happiness over the grand narratives of religious or historical painting. A Young Girl with Daisies fulfilled these desires perfectly. It was homey yet refined, with a soft color palette, a non-political and universal theme, and, above all, a happy visual experience. Works like this were widely appreciated in exhibitions and helped cement Renoir's reputation. For much of the 20th century, Renoir's work was at times dismissed as decorative or overly sentimental. But in recent decades, his artistry has been re-evaluated. His profound understanding of color and light, his balance of form and feeling, and the psychological depth he brings to his figures are now seen as hallmarks of a subtle and sophisticated vision. A Young Girl with Daisies is central to this renewed appreciation. It is neither merely a portrait nor simply a picture of a girl. Rather, it crystallizes the 19th century French ideal of beauty and the pictorial language used to express that ideal. The painting does not speak loudly, but in its silence flows a deep and gentle poetry. Through its soft light and tender colors, we find ourselves face to face with a moment suspended in eternity. With this work, Renoir reminds us that beauty is not something to be explained, but something to be felt. This painting offers a quiet but confident answer to the questions: what is painting? What is beauty? It is, quite simply, a piece of eternity spun with soft and weightless brushstrokes, a visual expression of timeless grace.